Good morning, everyone.
Good
Morning.
morning.
And
Pagi.
Selamat pagi.
Pagi. And for our viewer, hopefully it's already live on YouTube. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first webinar on building a stronger relationship between Indonesia and the Northern Territory post COVID-19. So my name is Ranga, and I will be your host for today. So after 9 years in the making, on February this year, the Indonesia and the Australia ratified the Indonesia-Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or the IASEPA, which unlocked so many potential of bilateral economic partnership, cooperation between businesses, even connection between people through social, art, and cultural collaborations. However, due to COVID-19, the two countries need to close their borders and temporarily suspend any exchange programs. But we're certain that this crisis will be over soon. Therefore, one question will remain. Will our relationship return back to normal after COVID-19 crisis? And before I introduce our panel, I would like to welcome our guest speaker, the Indonesian ambassador to Australia, Bapak Cristiarto Legowo, His Excellency Bapak Cristiarto Legowo, sorry. Good morning, Bapak, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, selamat pagi semuanya.
Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
And please, the time is yours, Bapak.
Oh well, okay. Thank you so much, Rangga Daranindra, our moderator of the event today. Yang saya hormati Bapak Sulki Flimansyah, Governor of West Nusa Tenggara Province. We have my colleague Pak Deki also, the Indonesian Council for Northern Territory. I would like to acknowledge the participation of Mr. Saundraps, CEO of Department of Trade, Business and Innovation Northern Territory, Ibu Tirka Widanti dari Bali Green School Indonesia. I spoke briefly before with Pak Peter Macmillan, the co-founder of Dicroco Boutique Australia, and also, well, the distinguished participants. Since we are still in the just a week ago, we celebrated the Eid al-Fitr. I would like to express happy Eid Mubarak to those who celebrate the Eid al-Fitr. May the blessing of Allah Almighty be always upon all of us. And actually, to start, I would like to immediately answer the question that's been put by our moderator, whether the relation between Indonesia and Australia will be back to normalcy again right after this pandemic is over. I could immediately answer that the relation will even be stronger than before. So I'm very optimistic with that. But again, first of all, I would like to thank the IDN Indonesia for the initiative to hold this webinar. And on this also, I would like to congratulate the IDN NT as a brand new IDN branch in Australia since its inauguration in January 2020. And I take note that even though the IDN NT is new, but it has been very active in its activities. I would like to thank in advance also to all the participants that will, for the contribution that will be made later at a later stage. And of course, we have what we call as the new normal now. The situation is different compared to that in the previous month. But again, that will not prevent us. Again, that will not prevent us from enhancing our effort to strengthen further the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Australia, that I can convey to all of you that has been stronger than before. And this has been marked by several events. I would like to convey to you that in 2018, even less than a week after he was elected as the Prime Minister of Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison visited Indonesia, during which, together with Pak Jokowi, that our two leaders have declared the elevation of the relations between Indonesia and Australia from comprehensive partnership to become comprehensive strategic partnership. What is the significance? The significance is that we want that the relations between our two countries will not only benefit the people in Indonesia and Australia, but we want that the partnership, the relations between Indonesia and Australia will also benefit our region and also beyond. And Pak Jokowi always mention, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And that is actually what happened between Indonesia and Australia. We will never forget, again, I need to mention, we will never forget what Australia has done when Indonesia has been affected by tsunami back in 2004. And Australia is the first country who helped us. And of course, Indonesia is not a rich country, but when Australia was affected also by the bushfire back in 2009, in Victoria in particular, we sent also a contingent of DVI, disaster victim identifications, to help their counterpart. And also we donated, Indonesia is not a rich country, but we donated also $1 million for the rebuilding of some schools. Well, this is not about the money, but this is about the friendship, the gesture of friendship. And of course, when Australia was affected also by the bushfire a few months ago, we sent also a contingent of military engineer, and that's only a week prior to the visit of Pak Jokowi to Australia in Canberra. And I do not want to fail to mention also that right after in 2019, in March 2019, our two trade minister has signed the long-awaited agreement that is on the comprehensive economic partnership between our two countries. And I would like to convey to all of you that both of our parliament have ratified the agreement, and with this, the agreement will come into effect on the 20th of July this year. So that is a bit highlight about the relations between Indonesia and Australia. And I would like to mention also that in the comprehensive strategic partnership that has been declared by Pak Jokowi and Prime Minister Scott Morrison, there is a special mention about the need to enhance the connectivity, the collaborations between Northern Territory and Eastern part of Indonesia. And I think this could become a basis, a strong basis for us, for diaspora Indonesia in Northern Territory, for all the relevant stakeholders, both in Northern Territory and in Eastern part of Indonesia, to enhance further. Not only the connectivity, not only the collaborations, but more importantly also how we could contribute together to become a building block in our joint effort to strengthen the foundation for the bilateral relations between our two countries, a foundation that make our relation even stronger. That stronger, that will not be easily shaken by any kind of turbulence. I always mention that we could not afford to have an unstable relations with Australia. Australia is our closest neighbor, so we do not want to, again, we could not afford to have an unstable relation with Australia. And I think the feeling is also mutual, so we only have one option. We do not have any other option but to enhance further the relation between our two countries. And again, about the Northern Territory. Northern Territory is literally the closest part of Australia to Indonesia. So I was told that it will take less than 2 hours if we want to fly from Darwin to Kupang. Even 1 hour, Pak. Okay. Oh, okay. That's good. Good to know. And you know, several times I traveled from Perth to Canberra. It took me almost more than 5 hours, almost 5 hours. And from Northern Territory to Canberra, of course, I have to transit in Sydney, and overall, it's gonna take more than 5 hours. Again, this only to reflect the proximity, the geographic proximity between Indonesia and Australia. Therefore, it is only natural for Northern Territory to be the spearhead, the leader in Australia in utilizing all the opportunities that we already have before us. When I talk about the opportunity, when I have to refer back to the CSP, the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership that has been declared by our two leaders, I would like to refer to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership that will be come into effect on the 20th of July this year. And moreover, the spirit of the CSP is not only to bring benefit to our two countries, I mentioned this before, but also to contribute toward a wider region. That is why with this spirit, the partnership between Indonesia and Australia, in particular with Northern Territory, I think it is also pertinent for us to discuss about how we could enhance further the trilateral collaborations, namely Indonesia, Australia, and Timor-Leste. So at the last trilateral meeting between all the three foreign ministers in September 2018, our foreign minister, Guretno, has specifically mentioned that Indonesia is committed to be a strong, reliable partner for the development of Timor-Leste, Australia, and in particular Northern Territory, and Indonesia, in particular eastern part of enhancement of the movement of people and goods. We would like to see the improvement of air, sea, and land connectivity. We would like to see the enhancement of telecommunication activity. So with this, we believe that we will be able to enhance further the trilateral cooperation between our three countries, and which we believe will bring people in our three countries even closer. Hence, we should never stop increasing the confidence-building measures as the foundation for such cooperations. A better understanding, especially between our law enforcer, will help us to cope with non-traditional threats, such as transnational organized crime that is always looming, to impede also our cooperation, in the future. So I would like to dwell a bit now about the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement that will come into effect on the 5th of July 2020. We should bear in mind that connectivity will become one of the crucial factors on how we could benefit the most this arrangement. Air connectivity, for example, several agreements have already been implemented, and I really take note the current available routes between Darwin-Dili, Dili-Denpasar, and Denpasar-Darwin, which maybe now this route's been affected also by this global pandemic of COVID-19. But again, that we do hope that once this pandemic is over, we could revive again this route, and we could even enhance this route by increasing the frequency, etc. That is why in the future we would like to encourage also Nusa Tenggara Barat to play a more role in this air connectivity, in particular to enhance the trilateral collaborations between Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and Australia. I don't want to fail to mention also about the importance of maritime connectivity. in which Indonesia will support the initiative to have a joint cruise route of Darwin, Kupang, and Dili to boost tourist flows among these three countries. And I've been updated that PT Pelni stands ready to work together with its counterpart in Australia and in Timor-Leste also. And I would like to touch upon also on education sector. One of the highlight in the economic collaboration is our collaboration in the education sector. And on this, through this agreement, now universities in Australia will be given the opportunity to open a full-fledged campus in Indonesia. And Monash University has expressed their interest. They have had a discussion with all the relevant authorities in Jakarta. Hopefully, we will be able to make this happen in the not too distant future. And I hope that this will be followed by other universities, also universities in Northern Territory. And this is not only about higher education. Vocational training also will be one of the focus of the implementation of this economic comprehensive partnership, because we believe that to be able to really make the most of this agreement, we need to enhance also the capacity building of our people. So again, we have so much in our plate. What we need to do now is just to act. And on this again, we rely a lot on the potential that could be played by the Indonesian diaspora in Australia, including those who live in Northern Territory. Because at the end, relations between two countries is relations about their peoples. So no matter how good the relations at the G2G level, if the relations between the people is not really good, then all the effort that we do will be in vain. And one of the area that I believe could be played by the Indonesian diaspora in Australia, including those who live in Northern Territory, is in helping us to enhance the mutual understanding. Because this is something that in the past create a kind of turbulence. As I mentioned, although the relation between Indonesia and Australia has never been better than before, as I mentioned, that the relation between Indonesia and Australia has never been stronger. But again, this is not something that we could achieve overnight. This is not something that we could take for granted. This is the result of the hard work. And sometimes the turbulence that happened in the past, it is caused by misunderstanding. Because so many Indonesians do not understand Australia better. And likewise, sometimes we experience so many Australians do not understand Indonesia better. This is the area that I consider a member of Indonesia diaspora in Australia, including those who live in Northern Territory, could help us, could contribute. And I believe by making this as our joint undertaking, we will be able to strengthen the foundation of the relations between our two countries, to make our relation even stronger, that strong, that will not be easily shaken by any kind of turbulence. So once again, thank you so much for having me in this discussion. And I would like to once again thank the Indonesia diaspora for once again taking the initiative to make us stay connected. And thank you so much for all the members of the panel, which I believe your contributions will be will benefit all the participants. In particular, will benefit all the relevant stakeholders that involved in the enhancement of the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Australia. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam, and thank you so much, Your Excellency. Now I would like to introduce you to our panel. In Mataram, we have Governor Zulkifli Mansyah, or commonly known as Bang Zul. He was the Indonesian legislative member for the House of Representatives from 2004 to 2018, and currently he's the governor for West Nusa Tenggara. Welcome, Pak Zul. And we have a Territorian who is currently living in Bali, Peter Macmillan. He's well known for his involvement in leadership across numerous enterprises and companies internationally. He led the development of 300 student accommodations units here in Darwin and a learning retreat in Bali. And he's also the co-founder for the Kroko Boutique in Darwin City. Also in Bali, we have Ibu Tirka, or I call her Mbak Ika. She has been a strong advocate for connecting students from different cultures and different backgrounds, and she is the president of Yayasan Kulkul, or Green School Bali. In Darwin, we have Sean Drabs. He was a senior economic advisor for the former Queensland Premier Peter Betty, and he has also experienced studying and living in Jakarta, Indonesia, and currently he is the CEO for the Northern Territory Department of Trade, Business and Innovation. So good morning to you all and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Morning. Terima kasih.
So my first question is to Bang Zul. Mr. Governor, the Northern Territory and West Nusa Tenggara are the closest region between the two countries. We have seen many cooperation between the Northern Territory and Nusa Tenggara to take advantage of the geographic location around tourism, education, and culture. My question is, what are your plans to rebuild the relationship between the Northern Territory and West Nusa Tenggara after COVID-19 crisis is over, particularly in line with the commitment of the two countries under IACEPA? Mr. Governor, over to you.
Diki, terima kasih Pak Duta Besar. Hello everybody. My first duty as the governor is to make sure that our province, West Nusa Tenggara, is friendly to visitors. And secondly, I have to make sure our province, West Nusa Tenggara, is friendly to business community, friendly to investment. Fortunately, because of the invitation of Pak Diki, I managed to visit Northern Territory a few months ago, and I was very happy to meet a lot of people there, and hopefully a lot of cooperation between the NT and West Nusa Tenggara can be fruitful in the future. For example, in the area of tourism, we are planning to have direct flight from Melbourne, Darwin, then to Lombok. Since a lot of Australians are coming to Bali, I think it is the time, especially after the COVID-19, they have to visit our area in Lombok. Lombok is beautiful. We have a lot of beautiful places here. Especially, we welcome you a lot, Pak Diki and Pak Dubes. And also the students, of course. And we also share commonalities in a lot of areas, especially the cattle station. Thank you again, Pak Diki. We were able to visit many cattle stations in the Northern Territory. And I think a lot of collaboration can be established between NT and West Nusa Tenggara. So hopefully the COVID-19 will be over soon. And we expect a lot of people from the Northern Territory are coming to Lombok, and a lot of people from area are able also to visit Northern Territory in the future. So great. We are waiting for all of you coming to our area. Thank you.
Yeah, great. So yeah, you did actually also mention about the COVID-19 and people traveling from Indonesia and the Northern Territory. My next question is actually for you, Peter. As you can see, there are zero number of new cases of COVID-19 here in the Northern Territory for the last couple of weeks. While the number in Indonesia is still climbing, do you think there is a cultural component that plays a role in it? And in your opinion, can the two governments take this as an opportunity to improve their relationships?
The way we see the world is really function of education, experience, economic development, and to whom we are interacting with. And bridge of understanding and reason, of course, can be established by two parties, Northern Territory and West Nusa Tenggara, since we share a lot of commonalities. I fortunately managed to visit the National Crisis Center and Trauma Healing Center, if I'm not mistaken, in Northern Territory. So I think to overcome a lot of problems, and especially disasters in our area, I think we plan also to send our staff to do short course or training in the National Crisis Center or Trauma Response Center in the Northern Territory. And last year, we sent also our staff to study vocational training and education in Northern Territory. And hopefully in the near future, we are able to send more students to Northern Territory. But unfortunately, if some people in Australia can help us, the cost of living and the tuition fee in the Northern Territory is much more expensive compared to the eastern part of Europe, say Russia and Poland. So if we are able to reduce the cost, I think we are going to send more students to Northern Territory.
Yep. Okay, thank you so much, Bapak Governor. And I can see some smiles there from Peter Macmillan. Is there something that you want to add in as well, Peter? So in your opinion, yeah, over to you, Peter Macmillan.
Selamat pagi, Bapak Governor. Yeah, good to see you. Look, your question was about C19 and what it's going to do for our relationship, ongoing relationship. I'd like to point, and you did make mention of the fact that there are no cases in the NT, which is great effort by the government and the people of the NT. But we need to understand that Indonesia has a population of approaching 300 million, inhabiting 6,000 islands. And they've got close neighbours in Singapore, Malaysia and the Philippines. Heather and I have spent the past 3 months in lockdown in Bali and loving it. So we had a first-hand opportunity to observe Indonesia's handling of the C19 challenge. Considering in Bali we had 5 direct flights per week from Wuhan and over 50,000 arrivals from China in the 3 months to March. Bali's exposure to the virus risk was significant, but the associated deaths, reported deaths here are less than 10. So, Indonesia's doing something right. They've done a wonderful job, and its people at all levels have cooperated with the government and followed instructions. Leaders in our small community here in Kediwatan have been tireless in ensuring our safety. I'm not sure about the cultural component of the question. However, I can offer that we might start rebranding this NT, yeah, and we can have NTR and NT Bay and NTT, yeah. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to reset. Later in discussions, I'd like to share our thoughts on the significant two-way learning opportunities between NTA, Bay and TAY. And thank you, Ambassador, for your emphasis on it. And also, it's been a great pleasure working with Governor Zul on, in record time, taking up a challenge of executing an agreement with the Northern Territory via Group Training Northern Territory. Yeah. That was executed in July last year. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And on that note, I just want to go straight to Ibu Tirka in Bali Green School. Bu Tirka, knowing that you have been involved in the student programs in the Northern Territory and now running your own institution in Bali, how bad do you think is the impact of COVID-19 to the younger generations? And do you think there should be a new initiatives or program for students after COVID-19?
Okay, so thank you, Mas Rangga, And first, I would like to say thank you too for inviting me to this lovely webinar program in building a stronger relationship between Indonesia and especially Bali to Northern Territory post-COVID-19. Well, I am the product of the exchange student program between our two countries. It was it was more than 30 years already that I became a student in Australia in a program that continues today. I regard the program as my life transforming. You know, it's a life transforming for me as well as for all the students over the years who have participated in it. And in fact, I am still in close touch with students of my class all those years ago and who shared that exchange experience as well as they too would tell you that it was a life changer for them and also a game changer for them. They are all leading lives of service and commitment to their communities. And to this day, I mean, and we must iron out whatever issues COVID-19 has brought about this impact to this program. And I'm here among you as a representative of a leading international school in Bali, a school with a worldwide reputation, and our student, about 400 students from age 3 to 18 years, is diverse. And but Australia's the second largest group of our students after the Americans and Canadians. And Australian parents are perhaps the most active of all our parents group. And add to richness of experience to our life together as a community throughout the several international schools in Bali. And Australian families play a major role. So this experience is one I'm very close to.
Yep. Oh, that's great. That's a great answer. My next question is actually over to you, Sean and Darwin. Sean, so we know that the Northern Territory were involved in some cultural exchange and student exchange programs such as the Bali Artist Camp and the NPCA Indonesia Australia Pastoral Program, or the NIAPP. How have this program been impacted by COVID-19, and will there be any continuity to the existing program after the crisis?
Terima kasih. Selamat pagi, Bapak.
Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
It's great to have the opportunity to participate in this webinar. Territory is very proud of the strong relationship we have with Indonesia. We have oral history, songs, dances, rock and bark paintings, which record and commemorate cultural ties between coastal Aboriginal groups and the Makassans, which go back centuries, well before European presence. We're committed to further developing the economic, cultural and strategic relationships. Indonesia adalah mitra utama bagi pemerintah Northern Territory.
Right.
I think I took up the ambassador's point that it's only an hour's flight to Kupang. It's 2 hours to Bali, 3 hours to Jakarta. Any other capital city in Australia from Darwin is at least 4 hours. So Jakarta is closer than any capital city. So very much in Northern Territory, we think north. We think that we are part the southern fringe of the Indonesian archipelago and the Southeast Asian region. To your question, Peter, Ranga, the Bali Artist Camp program is a platform for Northern Territory Australia Indonesian cultural diplomacy. It's produced some magnificent artworks, and to ensure the program continues in spite of this pandemic, the Northern Centres for Contemporary Art will run a retrospective exhibition to showcase the works of the Bali artists, and that's scheduled in August 2020. That event will be live streamed throughout Indonesia and Australia via social media. Indonesian artists will describe their experiences at the artist camps and the impact of their art and the lasting impact on their relationships an artistic technique. So what happens is Balinese artists come across to the territory, engage with our local and remote communities, learn about their cultures and express their learnings in their artistic creations. And with the other important partnership and exchange program we have is the Northern Territory Cattlemen's Association Indonesia-Australia Pastoral Program, NIAPP, which began way back in 2012, and Luke Bowen from my department is a key participant in that, and he's here listening into the webinar today. And we have something like 120 alumni of that program, where each year 20 students are selected from 17 universities across Indonesia this year for the 2020 program. And it's likely the program will be conducted later in the year due to COVID-19 before it gets too hot or in early 2021. We remain completely committed to the program and will continue to support it, including the valuable role of the alumni. And it's great that many of those alumni get together on an annual basis to maintain their connection and friendships and to share their knowledge and understanding of the cattle industry and the cattle trade between Indonesia and the Northern Territory. So I was pleased, just more broadly about strengthening the collaborations, I was very pleased to hear His Excellency the Ambassador talk about enhancing the connectivity between Northern Territory and Eastern Indonesia in particular. We very much see the Northern Territory as the foundations for the bridge, the physical bridge to Indonesia through and the trilateral relationship with Timor-Leste, as well as the Nusa Tenggara provinces. There are exchanges that are occurring already with Governor Zul in terms of vocational education and training, and people coming here on exchange, trainers going to Indonesia, as it's Peter McMillan's business is involved in that process. It's very important, the process of exchange. Rani, you mentioned that I myself lived in Indonesia. Saya tinggal di Jakarta untuk 2 tahun. I learned the language there 40 years ago. My vocabulary is quite small, but I can still pronounce it okay. But I had the privilege of going to the international school in Jakarta and also a 4-week exchange living in a village in Sumatera Selatan near Gunung Dempo and Bengkulu, which was a fantastic experience. So it's a great opportunity for people to learn, of course, but also to understand and create that mutual understanding that is so important. And I agree very much with the comments of a number of the participants about that.
Right.
We have huge opportunities for trade and development in terms of interconnectivity with telecommunications, the potential for solar energy from solar panels here exported by high voltage cable through the Indonesian archipelago, through our training and service and supply for the development of oil and gas industries, and through the continuing exchange in our tourism sectors. So there's an enormous amount of activity to do. We're very pleased to have the Australia-Indonesian Business Council Conference planned to occur here in October. We're very much looking forward to hosting that here in Darwin at an appropriate time once we get through the pandemic. So we are doing a lot of work within my department and across the government to ensure the great success from that tremendous opportunity and honour to host that conference here sometime over the next 12 months.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that Indonesia and Australia, have strong relationship in all aspects like educations and all those kind of things, which is really exciting. And obviously, COVID-19 has shown some weaknesses in these sectors for both parties, for Indonesia and for Australia. Now, Sean, in your opinion, how can Indonesia and the Northern Territory in the future after COVID-19 strengthen their relationship?
So I think we have a number of good examples of great cooperation and collaboration going back, for example, to the dreadful events in Bali in 2000 and the work of our police force to support the Balinese police solve those crimes the collaborative way in which the Australians came in, did not try to run the show, but provided support to the Balinese and respected their sovereignty. There are a number of other examples of great collaboration that have occurred. I think I'm particularly impressed with the degree of interaction that we're having in that vocational education and training space, and we see that as a tremendous opportunity for further growth and exchange. But it's only by one of the frustrating things for me, having lived in Indonesia for some 40 years ago, is that people in Australia don't understand Indonesia still very much, even though we're an hour or two away by plane. We might go to Bali, but the understanding of the culture and the particular history and the deep, rich history of Indonesia isn't fully appreciated by Australians. And the trade exchange that occurs between the two countries is, with a couple of exceptions, quite small. This is entirely frustrating for me. I've never quite understood why that's the case, and I think there's a recognition now between the governments of both of our countries of the changing geopolitical environment, the fact that it's not very clear who's on whose side. But one thing's for clear, that we both live in the same region, and we can get a lot more by helping each other rather than necessarily worrying about other key players in the system. So I think there's a recognition of that on the part of both sides, both Indonesia and Australia. And I think there are opportunities for us to ensure the security and sustainability of our economies by strengthening our mutual exchange.
Right. And I can see that Peter Macmillan wanted to say a few words as well. So what's your take?
You word also after Pak Peter on this.
Oh,
after Pak Peter, please.
Sure, no problem. Probably we'll go to Pak Peter first, and we'll jump into Pak Ambassador. Pak Peter, so what's your take on this? On how can the Northern Territory and Indonesia strengthen their relationship after COVID-19?
Ambassador Chris rightly suggested it's time for some action. Yeah, and I'd just like to briefly share our journey in answering that call to arms or call to action. We formed an Indonesian foreign investment company here, and it's an easy process, and the Indonesian government is so welcoming of foreign investors. Our company focuses on real estate with a particular bent. We are providing properties that support the education sector. They're a great learning facilities here in Bali. Ibu Tika and Green School is an outstanding example, but there are 7 other international schools here in Bali that can be connected to the Northern Territory and need help in the form of real estate, whether it be student accommodation or So that's what we're working on, and we're concentrating on the Ubud area, and in particular Keriwatan and Payogan. We've established a learning centre. It's a residential learning facility with a capacity for 20 students that's has hosted high schools and universities from the Northern Territory, from New South Wales, Singapore, and from Indonesia. Any surplus funds that we're generating from this endeavour is being put aside to assist local students with scholarship programs to study in the NT. We have under development a kindergarten with a capacity for 100 mainly local children aged 2 to 6. This is important, with classes conducted in English. And this is going to house the Spring School, which is an existing school that have lost their premises in Ubud, so it's a new home for them. Part of that's going to be a Learn to Swim centre. Royal Lifesaving Australia have got a program whereby they provide funds to Indonesia to facilitate local children and adults to learn to swim. So we're building a 20-metre pool that's going to be attached to the kindergarten, and it's designed for local children to learn to swim. It's very important here. We also have the opportunity for a language school that's being designed to meld with Governor Zul's school in Mataram. Group Training NT are working with Governor Zul, and he's taking local students to a certain level of English. But to come to Australia and study, as we all know, they have to get through a competency, English competency. So we're setting up a centre to help with that and get Pearson's.
So what you're trying to say is basically get Indonesian trained so that they can, so we can work together and they can come to Darwin and fill in the vacant position. Is that where you're going with?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going, Ranga. And Governor Zul pointed out that the cost of training in Australia is high. The program that we've put together involves establishing a scholarship fund to bring the students. It's a student loan program, so that people from Indonesia can come to Darwin to study with a debt for the training they've had getting ready to come, and then with the work experience. And this is one of Governor Zul's great initiatives. He wants his hospitality students to work in Darwin. I've been around to the hotels, to the better restaurants, and they're happy to have Indonesian students getting work experience with them. So from the salaries they earn, they can repay their student loan from the scholarship, and it just then can roll into the next group.
Right.
But your point on labour shortages, NT in Australia have got chronic labour shortages in areas such as aged care workers, 100,000. General nursing, 85,000 shortage. Automotive trades, 35,000. Then we've got early childhood teachers. Indonesia and the Northern Territory can come together to help solve that. And it's not to have the Indonesian people stay in Australia. It's to have them get experience and go back to their country
and get them contribute to the community. Yeah, that's correct. And Pak Ambassador, you wanted to say something as well in regards to this matter about strengthening the relationship after COVID-19. So, Chris.
Thank you, Pak Rangga. Again, I would like just to reiterate what I've mentioned before. What we need is just to act. The only problem is the COVID-19 itself. Right after this pandemic is over, I think what we need is just to act, because the commitment has been there, the platform has been there. And for example, right after the visit of Pak Jokowi, I think we have agreed on the sending of a big business delegation from Australia to Indonesia that would have been led by Minister Simon Birmingham himself. So we already have what we call as the 100-day roadmap of the implementation of IASEPA, with the intentions for us to benefit from what we call as the early harvest of the IASEPA. And as you understand also, as part of the agreement in the SEPA, Australia has agreed to increase the quota of Indonesians who could come to Australia under the working holiday visa from 1,000 now to become 4,100 right after this agreement come into effect, and the number will be even be increased to 5,000 in 5 years' time. So what we need to do is to act, but of course, due to this pandemic, we could not do anything. But at least what we could do now is to prepare ourselves. So once this pandemic is over, we could immediately in a high gear to implement all the commitments that we already have. For example, I would like to give special focus on the vocational training, because and on this, I believe that Australia have all the expertise to help us, because we need to prepare also our people for them to be able to enter the Australian market. And for this, they have to be able to meet all the requirements. And in the agricultural sector, in the mining sector, and I believe Australia could help us. So actually what we need is just to act, to prepare ourselves right now.
Right. Yes. Yes. And yeah, I can see a trend here. It's basically creating skills, training the younger people, younger generations, or the people between the two countries, so that they can actually help one another in different areas. And I can see that Ibu Tirka was like nodding while but Ambassador was speaking as well. Bu Tirka, is there something that you want to add in this as well?
Oh, thank you, Mas Rangga. As I mentioned earlier, that I'm a product, maybe also Mr. Governor is also a product of student exchange programs that until now I still carry on. So I'm hearing that from our international parents across grades and around the world, those who left at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, not because they were fearful to stay here, but the visa issues and being able to leave at a later moment and enter their home country may become difficult, but mostly left quickly in order to get home, okay, to care for their parents and elders within their own family. And I would like to state is also like Bapak Dubes just mentioned that we need to act. So not only act, then as soon as after the COVID-19, we need to run, and then do something, okay? And I need to also mention that though Bali, between Bali and Northern Territory, especially Darwin, is only 2.5 hours by plane, still not so many Balinese, still not so many Northern Territorians not knowing one another. So that's why that is also my job to act and then also to run very soon.
Thank you so much, Ibu Tirka. And yeah, look, that's been amazing. And I've been noted that how much time we have left, and I do apologize for this. Noting the time we have left before we go to our closing statement, our team have selected a question from the member of the public. We have a viewer from Darwin. Good morning, Cajun.
Good morning.
Good morning. Selamat pagi. Cajun, please, with your question, please.
So, thank you for inviting me, Ranga, to this discussion. I think it's been a really fantastic discussion. The question I have for the panel, which I think has already been alluded to, but I thought it'd be nice to flesh it out a bit more, is we can see how big tourism plays a role in East Indonesia and the Northern Territory. In your opinion, how important is mutual cultural understanding in improving the relationship between Indonesia and the Northern Territory? Thank you.
Thank you, Cajun. So basically, so I'll just open it to the panel. Who would like to start first?
Oh, I could perhaps begin, Ranga, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think it's critical that mutual cultural understanding occurs, and that can only occur by us visiting Indonesia and Indonesia visiting us. That's why we hold the Arafura Games. We had that event last year. We're planning to have that event next year as well. Some 200 Indonesian athletes participated in those games last year, and they were representatives from all around the region and further beyond, some from Eastern Europe, in fact. But I think developing that cultural understanding, fundamentally, we in the Northern Territory believe we can be a critical part of that process by building that initial bridge, as people have, other speakers have mentioned, and focus on the eastern Indonesian eastern part of Indonesia, the Nusa Tenggara provinces, as well as Timor-Leste, where there are some cultural overlaps. By having those engagements and exchanges, that can begin to build that deeper understanding of the respective cultures and appreciation and respect for those cultures. And then we can further expand that into other parts of the Indonesian archipelago, other provinces through Bali, Java, Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi. So I think we have to walk before we run. I think we have to build up progressively and create those strong bonds and ties with the mutual exchanges that are occurring, with the training programs that we can run in Nusa Tenggara Barat, for example, for people coming across. We're building a new campus for our university here in the Darwin CBD. There'll be opportunities there for Indonesian students to come across to Australia without having to travel too far, to live in a climate which is very similar to their home, and is less costly than other parts of Australia as well, though perhaps not as cheap as Eastern Europe, I'll accept. So I think those cultural exchanges and things like the arts and other cultures, the other cultural activities, theatre, performance, music, I think they're the things which deepen the bonds. So that would be my contribution to that question.
Right. Thank you, Sean. And how about you, Peter Macmillan?
I think it's pretty straightforward because in the NT, we need to align ourselves with Eastern Indonesia and market it as a package to the world. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that we need to get going. We need that connectivity between Darwin and Mataram, Darwin and Kupang. Yeah, and start to devote some funds to a joint marketing effort.
Yep. All right. Okay. And Bu Tirka, is there anything that you want to add in this?
Can I add?
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry, Ambassador.
Well, Kenjan, thank you so much. I think you have raised a very important question. And in fact, before in my statement earlier, I mentioned that that all the problem that we have in the bilateral relations between our two countries is because of the lack of understanding. It's something that we have to address. G2G level has been so excellent. B2B has been so excellent. But again, the lack of mutual understanding is still considered as the problem that we have to address. That is why during the visit to Australia, Pak Jokowi has specifically requested to Prime Minister Morrison to ease the visa restrictions for Indonesian people to come to Australia. And of course, we have done a lot of things also to ease the movement of people from Australia to Indonesia. And we have to enhance connectivity, definitely. We have to enhance, again, the movement of people and education. Our collaboration in education is very instrumental to address this issue of lack of understanding. And I'm very happy also that in YASEPA education, our collaboration in education has become one of the main focus in the collaboration between Indonesia and Australia in the future. So if we manage to tackle this, I believe that tourism, whatever collaborations that we have to achieve will be much easier.
Yeah. Can I just add,
yes, of course, Sean. Yeah.
His Excellency, I think His Excellency has been making the point frequently that we need to act, and I think the IASEPA is a fantastic agreement that we now have in place between Indonesia and Australia, and to have President Jokowi visit our country earlier this year was a great honour and a fantastic thing. And now we have the platform for the exchange to really occur and to turbocharge that exchange. And now is the time to act and to utilise that platform to strengthen those economic and cultural ties.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sean. All right. And Bu Tirka, is there something else you want to add as well?
I have only one sentence, Mas Rangga.
Sure.
So in mutual understanding, my analogy is in bahasa Indonesia, we can say tidak kenal maka tidak sayang. That's all.
Yep. That is a great way to actually end this webinar, to be honest. And yeah, noting about the time as well. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. And before I go, I would like to introduce you to Bapak Diki Suryanata Miharja, the Consul for the Republic of Indonesia in the Northern Territory, for giving us a closing statement on this webinar. Pak Consul, silakan.
Terima kasih, Mas Rangga. Thank you very much for being with us today, especially Pak Dubes di Canberra, Pak Peter Macmillan, Pak Shaun, Pak Zulkifli Mansyah, dan Bu Tirka yang sudah memberikan banyak masukan dan for giving us, sorry, I said in Indonesian, for contributing in these discussions. Of course, we just heard from our ambassadors that I think just want to reiterate that relations between Australia and Indonesia in the government level is excellent. In business to business, seems no problem, only some reluctance or maybe some reluctancy because of that is what we are discussing, mutual understanding, a cultural, more on socio-cultural understanding. That's why when I was discussing this seminar proposal with Pak Rangga and Pak Peter, Peter Nugroho, the president of the NT IDN, about that how we can formulate these socio-cultural issues as part of developing people to people or business to business and government to government better relationships. So we have living examples like Bu Tirka, Pak Zul, Pak Peter Macmillan, who has been living, or maybe also Shaun, Pak Shaun, who has been living in other countries. I mean, both sides, Bu Tirka and Pak Zul already living in Australia for more than 6 months, for more, maybe 1 year. So that's why the understanding about the Australian culture is bring up their also self-confidence to work with others, the confidence, where they work conveniently with other cultures. And on the other side, we have Pak Peter Macmillan, we have Pak Shaun, who's been also living in Indonesia for more than 20 years. It is also an example of how this socio-cultural understanding can bring our two nations even closer. But how to make these social cultural understandings getting more being with us within our two nations. So that is also said that Pak Dubes also already said that we need to take actions. We need to ease our two people goes to each other places, Indonesia and Australia. That's why Pak President Jokowi are requesting to enter Australia easier. So it brings more Indonesians come to Australia and bring more understanding. Of course, including what also said with Governor Zul, that to bring more students to Australia, also need to have a more competitive tuition fees in Australia. So there is something that we need to discuss further with our two sides, institutions, both government and also other institutions related. I think if we can reach these social and cultural understandings to the future as the basis of our mutual relations, beneficial relations between Australia and Indonesia, I also believe that our two nations, Australia and Indonesia, can, we really reach their goal. What is have been doing so hard between our two countries, like as our agreement in ISIPA and of course the comprehensive strategic partnerships, as to create Indonesia and Australia as economic engine of the region. So it is not only benefit Indonesia and Australia themselves, but also we bring more benefit to our countries around our regions. So by saying this, I think once again I would like to thank the IDN NT network for presenting this webinar, and then of course I would like also to present my appreciations and gratitude to Pak Dubes, who's in the short notice requesting him to be one of the speaker of the webinar. And then, of course, Pak Peter Macmillan, Pak Sean Dobbs, Bu Tirka, and of course, the IDN Australia as a whole, as the umbrella event of this webinar. Would like to thank Pak Iwan Wibisono in Melbourne for his kindness to give opportunity of this event happen. So with the hope that our bilateral, intercultural understanding Indonesia and Australia, then what I'm with my colleagues here in the consulate, of course, still working to push. We have to have more connectivities between Northern Territory and Indonesia, and of course, I will discuss with this further with any related institutions in Northern Territory as well as in Indonesian government, of course, under the guidance of our Indonesian ambassador in Canberra. Pak Governor Zul, Pak Peter Macmillan, Bu Tirka, Pak Dubes, and Pak Sean Dobbs, Pak Rangga, and Pak Peter Nugroho. Once again, I would like to thank, and of course, my appreciations and thanks goes to all the participants of this seminar. I hope that this seminar we can do even better in the future. More focus on one thing, and then we can give more benefit to all of us to create more on our socio-cultural understanding. Thank you very much, Pak Rangga.
Terima kasih.
Pak Dubes.
Terima kasih teman-teman semuanya.
Terima kasih Pak Diki, and with that, on behalf
Diki,
sorry, just a
Kita
quick
masih bisa ngambil foto nggak, Rangga?
Oh yes, of course you can take picture. But on behalf of the Indonesian Diaspora Network in Australia and in the Northern Territory, I would like to say thank you to all the panels and their teams. I want to say a specific thanks to the Department of Trade, Business and Innovations and to the Indonesian Consulate for making this event possible. And I also want to thank all the viewers who are home streaming live on YouTube. And I want to apologize with the technical delays in YouTube, but we have a few viewers right now, which is really great. As I said before, this is our first webinar, but surely this is not our last. And so until next time, I just want to say thank you very much and stay safe.